I knew you had to practice. I knew you had to fail. Because, frankly, if you don't develop an appetite for failure as an actor or an athlete, you're never going to succeed.
After decades of silence, Tom Selleck, the man with the iconic Hollywood mustache, has finally revealed shocking secrets about his friend and mentor, James Garner. The story begins with a fated meeting that changed both their lives. Tom Selleck reveals that James Garner was more than just a friend. He was the one who quietly pulled Selleck back from the brink, saving him from alcohol, drugs, and the deadly traps of Hollywood. But behind those noble acts, the real James Garner was even more stunning, a truth the entertainment industry was never ready to face. What was James Garner really like, and why did Hollywood hide the truth about him? The answer will leave you speechless. Tom Selleck grew up in Michigan, but his peaceful childhood soon gave way to the harsh realities of California when his family moved there. A scholarship to the University of Southern California, USC, opened a new door. Selleck joined the USC Trojans football team, and his dream of becoming a professional athlete seemed within reach. But fate took a painful turn. A horrific collision during practice twisted his knee the wrong way. The sound of the snap was a death knell, and the entire team went silent. Selleck collapsed, his face pale with pain, his breath ragged. He was carried off the field by teammates, and his athletic dream dissolved into thin air. When a drama coach noticed the commanding presence of the young man who was over 6'4", he advised Selleck to try acting. At first, he just laughed, but after doing a Pepsi commercial, Selleck was gradually drawn to the spotlight. His rugged charm and iconic mustache helped him stand out. However, the path to stardom was not paved with roses. He took bizarre roles and even appeared on a dating show where he was valued and chosen like an item of merchandise. It was during those dark days that Tom Selleck met a screen legend, the man who would change his life forever, James Garner. At the time, Garner was a household name, known for his role as private investigator Jim Rockford in the Rockford Files. Tom, meanwhile, was just a young actor, incredibly nervous in front of the camera. During rehearsals, the camera would pan cut and then pan again, with the director constantly yelling. Selleck endured the crew's contemptuous looks and even their sarcastic laughter. But he patiently went for a 30th take amidst the director's scolding. It was this persistence that caught Garner's attention. After the scene wrapped, Garner walked over and clapped Selleck on the shoulder. With his weathered eyes and a voice hoarse from cigarettes, Garner said slowly, "Hey kid, you've got potential." But that's not enough. To Selleck, those words were a wake-up call. From that day on, Garner became Selleck's mentor. Garner didn't teach him how to act. He taught him how to live in character. He pulled Tom aside, pointed to the camera, and said in a calm voice, "See that camera? It's not the enemy." He meticulously coached Tom on how to control his emotions. Just a quick twitch of an eyebrow, and the audience will understand what you're thinking. And then something incredible happened. In a short time, Selleck's acting improved dramatically. The director was astounded. He came out not with praise, but with an emotional question. "What happened to you?" The change wasn't just clear. It was like a miracle, leaving the entire crew in awe. The door to the legendary Magnum PI had officially opened. Tom Selleck was always deeply impressed by James Garner's courage. Garner wasn't just a talented actor. He was a strong individual who dared to do things few in Hollywood would. Selleck said, James Garner didn't need to act to be kind because that was his nature. Garner's childhood was haunted by his mother's early death and his father's neglect. He was abused by his stepmother to the point of running away as a teenager. Garner then dropped out of school and took on various tough jobs, from house painting to selling newspapers and even modeling. He enlisted in the army and served in the Korean War, where he was wounded twice. The war turned Garner into a quiet and somewhat reclusive person, but it also gave him a commanding and incredibly strong presence. While many kings of Hollywood were known for yelling at their crew, Garner chose a different path. He would bend down and shake hands with every backstage worker. Once during a shoot, he saw a lighting technician being yelled at. Garner stopped the entire production, pointed to the bright lights, and told the director, "If he doesn't work, we have no light to shoot with." Hollywood at that time was rife with filth and was seen as a secret casino of fame. Studios held absolute power, forcing actors into exploitative contracts, making them work 14-16 hours a day for meager pay. Anyone who dared to resist was blacklisted and even slandered by the media. Most artists bowed their heads and stayed silent to protect their livelihoods. But James Garner refused to live like a puppet. When Warner Brothers tried to coerce him and underpay him, Garner did the unthinkable. He took the studio to court, even cussing them out in the media, and won. It was a rare feat that few dared to attempt. That's why Tom Selleck, upon hearing the story from Garner himself, was truly shocked. The one thought that echoed in his mind was, how can someone be so reckless? Later, after achieving fame with Magnum PI, Selleck maintained a close relationship with Garner. Selleck saw Garner as a big brother, while Garner considered Selleck a worthy successor to the rugged American leading man archetype. This close bond ignited rumors. Hollywood was quick to fabricate a story that Selleck and Garner were romantically involved. Especially in the 1980s, tabloids constantly hinted at a secret life between the two. Some newspapers claimed that Selleck and Garner often attended parties together and had intimate conversations in public as proof of a homosexual relationship. In reality, Selleck had to repeatedly confront these rumors. He flatly denied them, stating they were fabricated to exploit his image. "I have nothing to hide. Garner and I are friends." But the press always wants to turn it into a sensational story. Contrary to the rumors, James Garner had a rare and enduring marriage in Hollywood. He married Lois Clark in 1956, just 14 days after they met. They were together for over half a century, had one daughter together, and Garner also adopted Lois's daughter from a previous marriage. In the early 80s, Tom Selleck became a global phenomenon with his role in Magnum PI, transforming him from an unknown actor into a star known across America. But behind the glamour and endless applause, he gradually realized the bitter and painful price of fame. For 8 continuous years, Selleck worked 14-16 hours a day, 6 days a week. He admitted to falling into a state of exhaustion and depression. "People saw me laughing on screen, but many times when I got home, I didn't have the strength to laugh anymore." Fame also cost him his privacy. Everywhere he went, supermarkets, restaurants, even on his own ranch, reporters followed him. The pressure to always maintain the Magnum persona made Selleck feel like he was living for the character, not for himself. His ex-wife shared that life with a man who always belonged to the camera's lens was unacceptable. Their adopted son, Kevin, often felt on the fringes of his father's life. Selleck admitted, "I always tried to find balance, but fame never allowed it." It was during this darkest period, when the studio lights went out and loneliness set in, that Tom Selleck admitted he sometimes looked at himself in the mirror and wondered, is it worth continuing? The 14-hour days, the pressure of fame, and the expectations of all of Hollywood weighed heavily on him, making him feel suffocated. There were nights he lay motionless and an unopened bottle of liquor on the table, and the thought of ending it all flashed through his mind like a cold blade. And then, just at that moment, James Garner appeared like a life raft in a dark sea. Garner would simply call after a long day of shooting his voice hoarse, asking, "You okay, Tom?" To Selleck, it was a lifeline. Each time he heard Garner's voice, he knew he hadn't been completely swallowed by the darkness. While other stars sought release in hard liquor drugs or fleeting affairs, Selleck chose to cling to Garner's advice: maintain integrity, find simple joys outside the set, and absolutely never fall. Perhaps it was those quiet phone calls that stopped him from taking his own life. Later, Selleck often confessed, "If it wasn't for James Garner, I might not be here to tell my story." The death of James Garner in the summer of 2014 shocked all of Hollywood. However, the pain for Tom Selleck was far greater. He didn't just lose a screen legend, he lost his mentor, his friend, and the brother he always respected. Tom Selleck recounted that James Garner had endured so much, from depression and pain from heart disease and arthritis to multiple surgeries. At the memorial service, Selleck stood silent for a long time. His hair was gray, his voice trembled, and his eyes were red. He choked out, "James Garner was a great man, a wonderful friend, and a model of professionalism that I followed my entire life." For Selleck, it was a heartfelt confession, because he knew that without Garner, Tom Selleck might have been just a handsome actor with a few minor roles forgotten among hundreds of TV shows. Many witnesses recall that after the funeral, Selleck sat alone for a long time, quietly looking at a photo of Garner placed on the altar. He said nothing, just clenched his hand, his shoulders shaking slightly, as if the whole world was silently collapsing. Years later, in interviews when James Garner's name is mentioned, Tom Selleck's eyes still turn red. Once, while recounting a story about Garner, his voice caught, and he turned away quickly, pulling out a handkerchief. People saw tears streaming down the face once called the Man of Steel by all of America. Overcoming the difficult period, Tom Selleck gradually found his footing again. But just when everyone thought he would seize the opportunity with the biggest roles constantly knocking on his door, he did something that astonished everyone. He left the spotlight to go back to a ranch. 65 acres in Ventura County, California, a place with no red carpet, no blinding lights, just pastures, the smell of damp earth, and the distant neighing of horses. That ranch was simply a gift for his daughter, Hannah. Selleck wanted her to grow up in nature with hands covered in dirt, the smell of hay, and without being caught in the whirlwind of celebrity life. He narrowed his filming schedule, turning down lucrative contracts in exchange for afternoons cleaning stalls and riding with his daughter. Hannah grew up with a radiant smile on horseback and a heart full of love for nature. Before she even reached adulthood, she entered professional equestrian arenas with the silent figure of her father watching from behind the wooden fence. Selleck created his own way of life, where family, nature, and connection became a more solid foundation than any Hollywood light. On screen, he played cowboys in Quigley Down Under and other westerns full of gunsmoke. In real life, he was a true cowboy. Later, when mentioning Garner, Selleck often gets emotional. "He taught me to live authentically. Without James Garner, I probably wouldn't have had the courage to choose this path." Tom Selleck never truly left the screen, but he never strayed from his role as a father either. And as the Hollywood glamour faded when movie offers were no longer pouring in, people still saw a man in California with dusty boots and calloused hands, but a peaceful heart because he chose the ranch over the lights. The ranch is located in Hidden Valley, Southern California, a peaceful valley near Thousand Oaks where the Selleck family lives, separated from the city's noise. This land once belonged to the legendary Dean Martin, and now it has become the home of the Selleck family. While many stars indulge in luxury, he immerses himself in everyday tasks, trimming avocado trees, fixing fences, and cleaning horse stalls. It's not just a place to rest, it's where he truly feels he belongs. And perhaps it's amidst the smell of damp earth, the sound of hoofbeats, and the tranquility of Hidden Valley that people understand why Tom Selleck is so different. Because beyond the filming seasons, beyond the legendary mustache, what remains is not just a ranch, but a legacy. Tom Selleck has left a brilliant legacy. After establishing his name in television, Tom Selleck never allowed himself to be typecast. In the 1980s and 1990s, when many TV stars struggled to transition to the big screen, Selleck dared to try. And he succeeded. In 1987, Three Men and a Baby became a box office phenomenon. The film seemed simple: three single men suddenly have to care for a baby, but it was Selleck who made the story relatable and touching to the audience. With his gentle eyes and clumsy but sincere demeanor, he made millions of viewers laugh and then cry, so that when they left the theater, they carried a warm smile with them. The film proved that Selleck was not just the action man with the legendary mustache. He also had the ability to make people trust and love him with the simplicity in every expression. Not stopping there, he returned to his old love, the American West. Quigley Down Under 1990 took Selleck to the wild Australian outback, where he transformed into a cowboy with resolute eyes, an imposing physique, and quiet courage. Westerns always need a face strong enough for the audience to believe the character can survive in the harsh desert, and Selleck delivered. On screen, he wasn't just a heartthrob, he was the heir to a past generation of film heroes with a bit of dirt and ruggedness, but still relatable and kind. As a new decade began, many of his contemporaries started to fade. But Tom Selleck did not. Since 2010, he has returned to television with Blue Bloods, the long-running CBS police drama. In the role of Frank Reagan, the stern patriarch of a family of New York police officers, Selleck proved that he could charm the audience with more than just his masculine looks. In that character, he brought dignity and a quiet inner strength, making people believe he was truly a man who carried the weight of both his family and justice on his shoulders. With few lines of dialogue, just a deep gaze or a quiet posture was enough for the audience to feel the gravitas. With Blue Blood, Selleck cemented his status. He was not a star of one era, he was a star who endured for many generations. But behind the glamour, Selleck's personal life also had its emotional twists. In 1971, he married model Jacqueline Ray, a beauty icon of the 1960s-70s. As his career was on the rise, Selleck made an important decision. He adopted Jacqueline's son, Kevin. It wasn't just a legal procedure. It was a promise that he would be a pillar of support for the boy. Kevin grew up amidst the temptations of Hollywood, but instead of following his stepfather's spotlight, he chose music. Later, Kevin became the drummer for the rock band Tonic, a group that had some big hits in the 1990s. Although he took his own path, Kevin never denied Selleck's influence, a quiet but steadfast father who gave him the stability to dare to pursue his dream. The first marriage ended after more than a decade, but Selleck didn't give up. He found happiness with Jilly Mack, and with Jilly he had his only daughter, Hannah Margaret Selleck, born in 1988. Unlike many star kids who grew up in luxury and sought to follow in their parents' footsteps, Hannah chose a completely different path: horseback riding. From a young age, Hannah was captivated by the sound of hooves, the smell of hay, and the freedom of galloping across a field. Selleck not only supported her, he changed his entire life to be with her. He bought a 65-acre ranch in California, reduced his filming schedule, and turned down attractive scripts just to spend time with his daughter. He would feed the horses in the morning, clean the stalls in the afternoon, and stand behind a wooden fence watching Hannah practice in the evening. Before she even reached adulthood, she became a professional equestrian carrying her father's pride. In Tom Selleck's eyes, his greatest achievement in life wasn't the box office hits or prestigious awards. His greatest achievement was seeing Hannah on horseback, her eyes shining, her posture graceful, and her heart free. In that image, Selleck saw himself not as a star, not as a legend, but as a man who chose family and nature as his anchor. "I'm prouder of my daughter than any award," he once said. And that statement is enough to redefine Tom Selleck's portrait, a man with an iconic mustache and a tall physique. But deep down, he always put family above Hollywood. Tom Selleck's legacy is not just the roles that have gone down in the history of American television and cinema. It's also the message that a star can be at the peak of fame and still choose to live authentically, to choose to love, to choose peace. And in a noisy Hollywood, that might be his greatest and most unique legacy. However, in every story about Tom Selleck's life, there is always one name that echoes somewhere in the background: James Garner. Because if Hannah was the source of pride that made Selleck a complete father, Garner was the one who laid the first bricks for him to become a true actor. When fame, money, and glory could easily lead many stars astray, Garner's image in Selleck's mind was always like a silent lighthouse. Selleck often recalls that on quiet nights on set, when he was sitting alone in his trailer, exhausted from the pressure of becoming the ideal man, he would remember Garner's words: "Fame may come and go, but integrity is what will help you stand your ground." The phrase seemed simple, but to Selleck, it was the truth. It was thanks to Garner that he learned to let his smile shine not just on his lips, but also in his eyes. It was thanks to Garner that he knew there was no need to strain to prove himself. Sometimes simplicity and sincerity are what touch the audience's heart most deeply. Today, as he enters the twilight of his life, Tom Selleck may not appear on screen as often, but in every slow step he takes on his avocado ranch in Hidden Valley, in every time he puts on a cold jacket in the early morning to feed the horses, one can imagine somewhere the memory of James Garner is still present, as if Garner is still patting him on the shoulder, quietly reminding him, "You're on the right track, Tom." And perhaps that is also a part of Tom Selleck's legacy, not just his memorable roles, not just a peaceful ranch, but also a friendship, a continuation from one golden generation of Hollywood to another. A reminder that kindness and integrity sometimes resonate far more than any movie or award. If you want to hear more secret and emotional behind-the-scenes stories like this, don't forget to follow the YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos.